My name is Marcus Levy. I am 42 years old. I have been a firefighter with Portland Fire and Rescue for 20 years. I joined at 22, right out of community college, because I wanted to do work that was real and that mattered and that required actually showing up in person, regardless of what else was happening in your life. In 20 years, I have been on hundreds of calls. Structure fires, medical emergencies, vehicle accidents, wildland fires during the Oregon summers. I have never not shown up. That is not heroism, that is the job. You go. Like and subscribe the channel, and tell us in comments from where you are watching this video. My brother Derek is 47 years old. He lives in Seattle. He is a project manager at a technology company, a job he has had in various forms for the last 15 years. He is intelligent and capable, and when he is present, he is fully present. He pays attention, he remembers things. He is the kind of person who follows up. He is a good person in most of the ways that matter. He has not been at most of the major events of my adult life. My college graduation, he had a work commitment. My wedding, he had a conflict he said he could not move. My promotion to lieutenant, he was going to come and then did not. The birth of my son Jackson, now 6, he called. He did not come. There are reasons for each one. Real reasons, some of them work is real, travel is real, the logistics of a life in a different city are real. I accepted the reasons. I told myself the reasons were valid. I told myself that a relationship with your brother is not measured by the events he attends. I told myself this for 15 years while Derek missed the events. Then my marriage to Lee ended, and Derek was on the first flight from Seattle to Portland. He was at my apartment before I had fully processed what had happened. He organized the family calls. He stayed for a week. He was present with the specific, capable presence that he had not managed to produce for a single good thing in 15 years. He missed every good thing in my life. He never missed a bad one. And when I finally put those two facts next to each other and looked at them, really looked at them, I understood that this was not a pattern of bad luck and bad timing. It was a pattern of something, and the something needed to be named. Derek and I grew up in Portland. Our parents, Charlene and the late Walter Levy, raised us in the same house in Northeast Portland for our entire childhoods. My father was a postal worker who retired at 62 and died at 68, 4 years ago, of complications from a stroke. My mother is 70 and still lives in the same house. Derek is 5 years older than me. 5 years is a significant gap in childhood. He was a teenager when I was still in elementary school, and the specific asymmetry of that gap meant we were never the same age companions that some brothers are. He was the one who was already out the door when I was still figuring out the neighborhood. He went to college at the University of Washington and stayed in Seattle afterward. I stayed in Portland. We became, over time, the brothers who talked on the phone and saw each other at holidays. We are not close in the way of brothers who are each other's closest friend. I want to be honest about this, because the story I am telling could be read as a story about a very close relationship that was badly damaged, and that is not quite accurate. It is a story about a relationship that was real and functional, and that had a specific pattern embedded in it that I had not named until naming it became necessary. The pattern was visible in retrospect from early on. When I graduated from community college, Derek was in the middle of a project at work. When I got into the fire academy, Derek congratulated me on the phone. When I got promoted to engineer, the first step in the promotion track, Derek sent a card. The card was warm and specific. He did not come. I had a theory about why, which I held for a long time without examining it closely. The theory was, Derek is not a celebratory person. He does not like events. He is uncomfortable with the performative aspect of gatherings that are organized around someone's success. He sends cards because he cares, but he does not attend because attendance at formal events is not how he expresses care. This theory was comfortable because it made his absence about his character rather than about his relationship with me. It was also, I eventually understood, wrong. Derek is not uncomfortable with events in general. He attended his own children's events. He has 2 kids, Maya and Sam. and he was at every recital and every graduation and every soccer tournament. He attended his wife's professional achievement dinner. He attended his in-laws' anniversary celebration. He is not a person who is uncomfortable with events. He is a person who did not attend my events. That is a different thing. The difference between does not like events and did not come to my events is the difference between a character trait and a choice. Character traits are not personal. Choices are personal. When I finally replaced the comfortable theory with the accurate one, I understood that what Derek had been doing for 15 years was making a choice, repeatedly, consistently, to not show up for the moments when my life was going well. And that choice had a shape. The shape was a pattern. And the pattern told me something about how Derek experienced my success. I want to give you the list, not as an accounting of grievances, as the record of what was missing from a specific 15-year period of a brother's life. My college graduation. I graduated from Portland Community College with an associate's degree in fire science at 22. It was a small ceremony. My parents were there. My mother cried. Derek called me the morning of and said, "Congratulations, I am thinking about you." He was in the middle of a sprint at work. He was sorry. I said, "It's okay." My acceptance to the fire academy. Derek sent flowers. My mother kept them for a week. She said, "Derek sent flowers." I said, "I know, I appreciate it." My wedding. Lee and I got married at 31 in a ceremony at a venue in southwest Portland on a Saturday in September. Derek RSVP'd yes. He was going to be there. 3 weeks before the wedding, a conflict arose at work, a major project, an unavoidable commitment. He sent a gift. He called us the morning of and left a message while we were getting ready. The message was warm. He said he was sorry. I had a small wedding party, 3 groomsmen, a friend from the fire station, a friend from high school, and my cousin Bobby. The spot that would have been Derek's was filled by Bobby stepping up. My mother told me, years later, that she had called Derek before the wedding and asked if there was any way. He had said no. My promotion to lieutenant. I made lieutenant at 35 after 13 years on the department. The promotion ceremony at the station is not a large event. It is the department, the family, the chief, my captain, the people who had been with me for 13 years. I told Derek in advance. He said he would come. On the day, he texted, "Something came up, I am so proud of you." He was not there. My mother was there. She pinned the badge. My captain shook my hand. The photo that exists from that day has a specific, slightly empty quality. There is a gap in the family grouping, the gap where a brother would have stood. The birth of my son Jackson. Lee went into labor on a Tuesday in March. I called Derek from the hospital not to summon him, just to let him know what was happening. He said, "Text me when he is here." I texted him at 11:17 p.m. He texted back, "Congratulations." He said he would come when things settled. He came 6 weeks later for a weekend, when Jackson was 6 weeks old and the emergency and the wonder and the first week had all already happened. He met his nephew, he held him. He was warm and present for the weekend. He left on Sunday. He had missed the arrival. 5 events. Graduation, wedding, promotion, child's birth, and the promotion to captain that I have not mentioned yet. I made captain 3 years ago at 39, and Derek sent a text message with a fire truck emoji and the word "finally." Not a call. A text, the fire truck emoji. 5 events and the entirety of what was missing in them is the same thing, Derek. Each one had a reason. Together, the reasons became a record. Lee and I were married for 9 years. I am not going to describe the divorce in detail because the divorce is hers as much as mine, and her story is not mine to tell. What I can say is that the marriage ended for reasons that were real on both sides, that we tried before we stopped trying, and that the ending of it was hard in the specific way that the ending of a 9-year relationship with a person you loved is hard. Not catastrophic, just hard. I told Derek when it became clear that the marriage was ending. I did not call him dramatically. I called him the way I call him with significant news, which is to say, I called him, I told him what was happening, I kept the call to the relevant information. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I am coming." No conflict at work, no scheduling difficulty, he was coming. He was at my apartment in Portland 48 hours later. He had booked the flight within hours of hanging up the phone. He stayed for a week. He went with me to the meetings with the mediator. He sat with me in the evenings while I was going through the specific, disorienting process of dismantling a shared life. He cooked. He cleaned. He called our mother and our cousins and managed the family's awareness of the situation with the specific competence of a person who was doing what he understood how to do. He was good at it. I want to say this clearly because the story could be read as Derek's presence for the divorce was false or performed, and that is not what I experienced. His presence was genuine. He was present with the specific quality of someone who had genuine love for his brother and who was, in this moment, directing that love actively toward the person he loved. But in the third evening, while he was making dinner and I was sitting at the kitchen table watching him, I thought, he is here. He is here in a way he has not been here. And I thought, for what? He is here because my marriage ended. He was not here when my marriage began. He was not here when my son was born. He was not here for any of the things that I would have wanted him to be present for. He is here because I am in pain. The thought arrived, and I held it, and I did not say it because it was not the moment. The moment was my divorce, and Derek was doing a real and loving thing in it. But the thought was true, and I was going to have to do something with it. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, when I was in a more stable place and the immediate rawness had settled into the ongoing work of rebuilding, I started thinking about the question I needed to ask Derek. Not a rhetorical question. A real one. A question that required a specific answer. And I started building the list. I want to examine what Derek did during the divorce with the same precision I am applying to what he missed, because fairness requires both sides of the ledger. He came immediately. No conflict at work materialized, or if one did, he managed it differently than he had managed every previous conflict. He stayed a week. He was present and practical and warm. He called our mother. He took the organizational burden of managing the family's response off me at the exact moment when I had no capacity for it. He called me every week for 3 months after he went back to Seattle. Not a perfunctory call, a real call, 45 minutes to an hour, asking about the process and the feelings and the adjustment. He has been calling regularly since in a way that he was not calling before the divorce. The relationship, in the months since, has had more contact and more depth than it had in the years preceding. What Derek did was love. I want to say that clearly because the love was real and the love was not nothing. He showed up for my pain with everything he had, and everything he had was considerable. The love is not in question. What is in question is the pattern that the love was embedded in. A love that shows up for pain and does not show up for joy is a specific kind of love. It is not the full love of a sibling relationship. It is the love of someone who is drawn by need and not drawn by triumph. It is the love of someone who knows how to be present when you are diminished and cannot find the ease to be present when you are not. I thought about why for a long time. Not as an exercise in psychology, I am a firefighter, not a therapist, but as a person trying to understand a specific, real pattern in someone he loved. The most honest explanation I arrived at: Derek has always found me easier to love when I was struggling, not because he wants me to struggle, but because my success produced, in him, something that was not comfortable, something that felt like competition or comparison or the specific weight of a brother who had done something he had not done. And my pain did not produce that. My pain produced only the need for him, and he knew how to be needed. This is not something I said to Derek during the divorce week. It is something I said to him 4 months later, at a summer cookout at our mother's house, after I had the list and after I had the question ready. The summer cookout is the Levy family's version of the Christmas gathering, the summer anchor, the event everyone comes to, the gathering where the family is assembled. I went with the list. I had the question ready. I want to name the pattern before I tell you about the cookout, because naming it is part of the story. The pattern is this: Derek's presence in my life has been inversely correlated with my well-being. When things were going well for me, when I had achieved something, when I was at a high point, when the occasion was one of joy, he was absent. When things were going badly, when I was in pain, when I had lost something, when I needed managing, he was present. The correlation was consistent across 15 years and across 5 major events. I am a firefighter. We assess patterns. We read a scene and we understand what the fire is doing and where it is going based on the patterns we observe. The pattern of smoke behavior tells you what the fire is doing that you cannot see directly. I had been reading the smoke for 15 years and telling myself it was just weather. It was not just weather. The pattern told me, Derek is more comfortable with my need than with my achievement. He knows how to be a brother to a person who is struggling because struggle does not produce the discomfort that success produces. Success, for Derek, was a comparison point. My success was something he had to locate himself relative to, and the location was uncomfortable. I am not diagnosing Derek. I do not have a clinical framework for what I am describing. What I have is 15 years of observed behavior and the pattern it produces. The pattern says, he avoids the events that require him to witness my joy. He attends the events that allow him to be the one who helps. He has organized a relationship with his brother around being needed rather than being present. The question I was going to ask him was not, why do you do this? I knew he would not be able to answer that question in a way that was complete or honest, because people rarely can articulate the motivations for their own avoidance. The question I was going to ask him was the question that made the pattern visible from the outside. The question that required a specific answer. The question that produced silence if the pattern was real. Can you name one good thing that happened to me in the last 15 years that you were present for? Not, do you love me, which he would answer yes with complete sincerity. Not, why did you miss my wedding, which would produce an explanation of the specific conflict that stood in for the real reason. The question that made the absence visible was the question about presence. Name one time you were there. One specific time, in 15 years, when something good was happening for me and you showed up for it. The Levy family summer cookout is held at my mother's house in Northeast Portland, the same house we grew up in, on the third Saturday of July. It has been the same third Saturday of July for as long as I can remember. My father established it, and my mother has continued it. 25 to 30 people, cousins, aunts, my mother's church friends who have become family over decades, the neighbors who have been next door for 25 years. The food is always right. The day is always warm. Derek drove down from Seattle. He does come to the cookout. The cookout is not a success event. It is a family gathering, and his attendance at family gatherings has been more consistent than his attendance at my specific milestones. He arrived in the early afternoon with his wife Sandra and their kids Maya and Sam. He was warm to my mother, warm to the cousins, warm in the specific ease of someone who is comfortable at this gathering. My son Jackson was there with me. He is 6 and he had been at the cookout the previous 2 years. He knows the space and the people, and he moves through the gathering with the freedom of a child who feels safe. He spent the first hour with his grandmother. I waited until the afternoon had settled, after the food, after the initial circulation, when the gathering had found its rhythm, and people were in the specific comfortable state of people who have eaten and are resting and talking. I found Derek near the cooler. I said, "Can I talk to you for a few minutes?" He said, "Of course." We sat at a picnic table away from the main gathering. Not dramatically away, just enough for a conversation that the whole yard did not need to hear. I had the list in my pocket. The list was a single piece of paper, printed, with 5 columns. The event, the year, whether he was present, and the reason given for his absence. I put the list on the table between us. I did not explain it immediately. I let him look at it. He looked at it. He was quiet while he read it. After about a minute he said, "Marcus." I said, "I have a question." He said, "Okay." I said, "Can you name one good thing that happened to me in the last 15 years that you were present for? Not just, were you there in general? One specific good thing, a celebration, an achievement, a joy. One time that something good happened for me and you showed up." He looked at the list. He looked at me. He was quiet for a long time. Not the quiet of someone forming an answer, the quiet of someone who has been asked a question they cannot answer and is sitting with the impossibility of it. He said, he stopped. He said, the cookouts. I said, which specific one? He was quiet. He said, Marcus. I said, the question is the question. I need to know if there is an answer. He was very still. He could not answer the question. Not because he was being evasive. I watched his face closely, and what I saw was not evasion. I saw someone genuinely searching, going through 15 years, looking for the instance that would be the answer, coming back without it. He said, the cookouts. I said, the cookouts are not a good thing that happened to me, they are a family gathering. I am asking about a Marcus event, something that was specifically about something good in my life. He looked at the list again. He said, I was going to come to the promotion ceremony. I said, but you did not. He said, the wedding. I said, Derek. He said, I know. He said those two words, I know, and they had the weight of the two words that appear in this series, as the signal that a person has understood something they have been avoiding understanding. He said I know with the full weight of a man who had just looked at a list of 15 years and could not find a single time he had been present for his brother's joy. And he knew what the list meant. He said, why did you not say something before? I said, because I did not know how to name it before, and because each individual instance had a reason and I accepted the reasons. He said, they were real reasons. I said, they may have been. But 15 real reasons that all point in the same direction stop being coincidences. He was quiet. I said, I need to ask you something else. I need to ask you why you came for the divorce and not for any of this. He said, I wanted to help. I said, you wanted to help. He said, yes. I said, I needed help at the promotion ceremony too. I needed someone there. It is not help when you show up, it is presence. And you did not give me presence when things were good. He said, I did not know how. He said it quietly. Not as an excuse, as the truth of it. He said, when you were doing well, I did not know how to be there. I said, what does that mean? He said, it means he stopped. He said, you always did things. You became a firefighter, you made lieutenant, you made captain, I was proud of you. But I also felt, and this is going to sound wrong, I also felt left behind. And I did not know how to show up for things that made me feel left behind. The room we were in was not a room, we were outside, at a picnic table in July in Portland. But the quality of what he had just said made it feel like a room. He had named the thing that I had theorized. He had said it out loud. He had said, your success made me feel left behind, and I avoided the events where your success was visible, and I showed up when you were suffering because suffering is a place where I could help without comparing myself to you. He said it, in his own words. To the person he had been doing it to for 15 years. My mother, Charlene Levy, had been watching from across the yard. She did not come to the picnic table while Derek and I were talking. She understood, in the way that mothers understand these things, that the conversation was happening and that it needed to happen without her. She busied herself with other conversations while watching. I could see her watching. After Derek and I had talked for about 40 minutes and had arrived at the quiet that follows the most important part of a conversation, not the resolution, but the place where what needed to be said has been said, Derek went to find a drink. My mother came to the picnic table. She sat down across from me. She looked at the list. She said, I watched this happen. She said it simply, not as a confession or a condemnation. Just, I watched this happen. She said, I noticed it starting when you made lieutenant. I noticed Derek did not come and I noticed the pattern of it before you named it. I said, why did you not say something? She said, I thought it would pass. I thought he would find his way to showing up. I said, it was 15 years, Mama. She said, I know that now. She said, Derek loves you. I said, I know that. She said, he loves you and he has a thing in him that has made it hard to be present for your good things. She said it with the specific precision of a mother who has watched her children for 70 years and has arrived at very accurate understandings of who they are. She said, it is not about you. It is about him. I said, I know it is about him, but it has been happening to me for 15 years. She said, yes. She put her hand on mine. She said, and you named it. You asked the question. That is what you do. You see a thing that needs to be addressed and you address it. She said, your father would have been proud of you for saying it. She said it with the specific weight of invoking a dead man whose opinion still mattered. She said, I need to say something to Derek too, Not to protect you, you do not need protection. But I have been watching this for 15 years and I have something to say about what I watched. I said, say it. She went and found Derek and they talked for 20 minutes near the back of the yard. I did not hear what was said. Derek came back to the picnic table before the gathering ended. He sat down, he said, I am going to work on this. Not a promise, because promises in this context need to be kept rather than made. An intention. The cookout was 3 months ago. In those 3 months, Derek has called more than he called in the previous 3 years. Not in the frequency of the divorce period, more than normal. The calls are different in quality. He asks about Jackson. He asks about the department. He asked about the promotion exam I am considering. He asked about the promotion exam. He has not yet attended an event. There has not been a major event in the 3 months since the cookout. What there has been is a different quality of contact, more attention to the ordinary of my life, less waiting for a crisis to make him available. Sandra, Derek's wife, texted me the week after the cookout. She said, Derek told me what happened at your mom's. She said, I want you to know that he has been talking about it. She said, he is trying. She said it with the warmth of someone who loves the person who is doing the trying and who wanted me to know the trying was real. My mother called me the following week. She said, I said what I needed to say to Derek. She did not tell me what she said. She said, it needed to be said. I said, I know. She said, your father missed things too in his own way. The men in this family have a tendency to not know how to be present for each other's good things. She said, I raised you to be different. She said, you are. My son Jackson asked me last week about Uncle Derek. He asked, why does Uncle Derek live far away? I said, he lives in Seattle, which is a few hours from Portland. He said, does he know about firefighting? I said, a little bit. He said, will he come to the open house at the station? The station has an annual open house for families. I have not invited Derek before. I texted him after Jackson went to bed. I said, Jackson wants to know if you will come to the open house in September. He replied within 10 minutes. He said, I will be there. I am 42 years old. I am a firefighter. My job is to assess scenes and respond to what is actually happening, not to what I wish were happening, not to what is convenient to believe, but to what the evidence says is occurring. In 20 years of doing this work, the most dangerous thing I have seen is not fire. The most dangerous thing is a person who has assessed a scene incorrectly and is responding to the assessment rather than the reality. What I had been doing for 15 years was responding to the comfortable assessment, the one where Derek's absences were reasonable individual events rather than a pattern. The comfortable assessment meant I did not have to name the pattern, did not have to ask the question, did not have to sit at a picnic table in July and watch my brother search for an answer he could not find. The comfortable assessment was less painful than the accurate one. The accurate one was more useful. I keep the question, can you name one good thing that happened to me in the last 15 years that you were present for? I keep it not as a weapon, but as the question that made the invisible pattern visible. The question that required a specific answer and received the specific silence that was more honest than any answer could have been. That question is available to anyone who has been in the relationship I was in. Name one time. One specific time. If the answer is not there, the pattern is. I keep my mother saying, I watched this happen, not because I needed her to say it to validate what I already knew, because there is something specific about a parent naming a thing they watched, the witness speaking. She saw it from the time I made lieutenant. She was 70 years old and she had been watching, and she finally said it out loud at a picnic table in July in Portland. That matters. And I keep the text, I will be there. Derek's reply to Jackson's question, 10 minutes after I sent it. The fire station open house is in September. There will be photos. There will be a moment where my son shows his uncle the fire engine he has been hearing about since he could talk. There will be, for the first time in 15 years, a good thing in my life that my brother witnesses. He missed every good thing in my life. He never missed a bad one. I asked the question. He could not answer it. And now he is trying to. That is what I keep. If you stayed until the end, thank you. This story is for everyone who has had a family member who only showed up for the hard things. For everyone who has watched someone be present for their pain and absent for their joy, and has told themselves, it was just timing, just circumstances, just the way things work out. For everyone who has accepted the comfortable explanation for long enough that the accurate one became necessary. The question is available to you. Can you name one good thing that happened to me in the recent years that you were present for? Ask it gently, directly, with genuine curiosity. Not as an attack, as a request for evidence of the opposite pattern. The answer, or the silence where the answer should be, will tell you something true. And if you are Derek in someone's story, the open house is in September. There is still time to be at the thing. You do not have to wait for the pain to arrive before you show up. The joy is just as real. Show up for that too. Drop your city in the comments. Tell me if someone in your life only shows up when things go wrong. Tell me what you did with that. I read every single one. Subscribe, hit the bell, share this. More stories coming. I'll see you next time.